ILWeber Grills and Great Chefs Productions present Grill Out Chicago, featuring grilling tips and recipes from 5 of the city's finest chefs, including Jean Joho of Brasserie Joe, Sarah Stegner of the Ritz-Carlton Four Seasons Hotel, Stephen Chiappetti of Mango, Rick Bayless of Frontera Grill, and from the Weber Grill restaurant, Randall Wadner. Chef owner Rick Bayless brings encyclopedic knowledge of that ethnic segment to the table. He was awarded the prestigious Chef of the Year by the James Beard Society in 1995. His first item is called lamb barbacoa, which is cooked indirectly and at the same time creates a side dish of soup. It's served with a pasilla chili salsa.
Today we're going to be making a barbacoa in the Central Mexican style. It's always made with a lamb roast or sometimes with whole animals. And typically in Central Mexico, it is buried in a pit in the ground and cooked overnight. It's a great thing to be able to do with a kettle grill, just like the one that we've got going here, and we've got it hot. We've got the coals ready for it. But we're going to make a soup that is going to actually go in the grill along with this, and it will collect all those rich juices from the lamb. In this pan here, which is just about a 12 by 9 aluminum pan, we have rigged up a contraption that'll be just perfect for making this soup underneath the lamb roast. Potatoes and carrots, potatoes and onions. We've got some sliced onions and then potatoes. I like to use the Yukon Gold potatoes because they give such a rich flavor. Are already here in the pan. We're going to put a couple of cloves of garlic, big cloves of garlic that I've cut in half, and sprinkle in some diced carrots all around. Garbanzo beans are a very traditional flavoring and texture in the soup, what they call consommé in Mexico, that is served with this lamb barbacoa. And then we've got an herb, epazote, one of my favorite things. It's kind of a pungent herb. When you smell it, it really brings back the flavors of Mexico, the history of Mexico. It's one of the native herbs that's used there. And we can just take a few of these sprigs. If you don't have them, put in a little bit of cilantro, put in a little bit of parsley, just to give a nice little herbal touch to it. Now we're ready to put it in. We're going to cook by the indirect method here. So our grill is set up with charcoal holders on both sides of the grill. You can see that the briquettes have been heated until they've got that nice light ash all over the top of them. We've got a medium heat, and I'm going to put the base of our soup, that pan that we created here, right in the middle between the two charcoal baskets. Now, it'll take about 5 cups or so of water to fill this, and that's what's going to be the base of our soup as we're cooking this roast. And on top of that, we're going to place a roast holder. You can see how that'll just nestle right down there on top of that. And we've got here the lamb shoulder roast, which I've tied up so that it'll look nice when we slice it up. And all we have to do to it, really, for seasoning, is to sprinkle salt over the top of it, because it's going to get a nice smoky flavor, and all the aromas from the pot below it are going to come up and baste it and give it all kinds of good flavor. So straight in on the roast holder goes the lamb roast. And now we're going to cover it up. You'll see that we'll have to come back about every hour, open the side slots here, and put in about 6 or 8 briquettes, and to keep the temperature at a constant 250 to 300 degrees, which we'll be able to monitor with our thermometer there. Now, we're going to let that go. It'll take about 2.5 hours or so for it to get done, and it'll be completely fork tender. That's what we're looking for. If you have a meat thermometer, we'll look for about 170 degrees on that. While it's cooking, let's talk about the salsa that goes with it, the very traditional salsa borracha, what's called drunken salsa in Mexico. It's made with dried chilies and garlic, and then enhanced with all these other great flavors.
The salsa contains, among other things, roasted garlic and dried pasilla chilies.
We're going to combine them in the food processor with 6 chiles pasillas that we have already toasted and soaked. Now, these were soaked just in warm tap water. for about half an hour or so until they soften up and they're very pliable. We'll combine those in here and give it a little, we'll turn it on here enough to sort of get us a rough puree going, and we'll add all the rest of our seasonings then. Okay, the top comes off, and in my little mortar, I brought along my mortar from Mexico, the one that's made out of lava rock, and we're going to put our seasonings in there, about a half a teaspoon of peppercorns, a pinch, just about an eighth of a teaspoon or so of cumin seeds, and a teaspoon of Mexican oregano. I've got the whole leaf Mexican oregano, the way they sell it in the Mexican markets. Then combining these and crushing them together will release an incredible aroma. You can see that this is a cuisine of aromas. We've got the sweetness of that garlic, the toastiness of the chilies, and now all of the herbs and spices pulverized together, and they go into the food processor. About a half a cup of orange juice is a typical accompaniment in this really robust salsa. And now to the borracha part of it. We've got a little bit of beer that we're going to put in, about a third of a cup of that, and just a dash of tequila. I like to use a white tequila because it's got the brightest and most interestingly delicious flavors to my palate. I'm going to pulse it a couple of times. And the salsa is essentially finished, except for a little salt that we'll add just before we're serving. We're going to let the flavors all mingle for a little while. We want a kind of coarse puree out of it, and that's what it looks like. We're going to come back to this when our roast is ready to finish up the barbacoa with salsa borracha. Wait till you see what this roast looks like, this lamb roast that's been cooking here for a couple of hours now over the pot of soup. Oh, the aromas are just incredible. Let's pull it out and take a look at what's happened here. Grab it from the sides and move it carefully over here. Wow, look at the golden brown color of that roast. Let's move it to our cutting board and take a look at the soup. We've got to finish the seasonings now on the soup. We've got a couple of pieces here to fish out. We made a homemade contraption so that we could roast that lamb up above the soup. Now the smell of the lamb has really permeated the soup. The last seasonings that are going to go in are a little bit of chopped cilantro. Boy, that will give it a fresh, nice flavor. And a little bit of chipotle chili. Now, I've sliced this chipotle, the kind that we get in the cans, the little smoky, dried jalapeno chili that you can find in lots of the markets these days. And some salt. And this will be a very hearty and very satisfying way to begin a meal. Now, because this is lamb shoulder, you want to make sure it's cooked long enough until it's tender. I suggest to most people about 170 degrees. Be the right temperature to make sure everything is tender. The smell of that lamb roast is really stunning here. Let's take a look. Slice one end of it off. Oh, I think we're just right where we want to be. It seems very tender. Nice amount of steam coming up off of it. Now, how would you present this? It's very nice and hearty and got all those good vegetables in there, as well as the flavor of the lamb. Oops, there's some of that epazote that we put in, the traditional Mexican herb. I've put this out on a piece of banana leaf here because in some places in Mexico they actually do barbacoas with banana leaf wrapped around the roast while it's cooking. There's that pungent and rustic salsa borracha. It's got the tequila and the beer in it. Sprinkle a little bit of the queso añejo. This is the aged Mexican cheese that comes from Mexico. It's a little bit like Parmesan, and some olives over that. You can see that this is a meal for people who like hearty flavors. Again, a piece of banana leaf here. Lay slices of our roast out, overlapping on that banana leaf. And I always like to put just a little of the salsa over the top because it looks nice and it encourages people to eat it, and then serve more in a little salsa dish on the side. What do you think? This seems like it's come out good, and it's gonna be something that would appeal to people that like spicy flavors.